On today's episode of Financially Fierce, I would love to have a conversation about the 3 conversations you can have this month to improve your financial life. This is for anyone that wants to take action, but you're just not necessarily quite sure exactly where to start. Don't worry, I got you, because honestly, here is my hot take. Clarity and action, it doesn't always come from the spreadsheets. I think what happens first is conversations. And so let's give you the run up so that when you are ready to delve into, your spreadsheets, your investment portfolio, your super, whatever it might be, we actually go in with a clearer mind and a clearer understanding of what we are looking for. I think these 3 things can create potentially some pretty big shifts in your world. Hopefully your bank account, hopefully your overall, portfolio, but also hopefully your mindset as well. This is a podcast for everyone that wants to learn how to make fierce and bold choices with their money. We'll talk about how to shape your money mindset, investing for your future, your spending habits, the good and the bad, plus how to achieve your financial goals, and most of all, how to be financially fierce. I am a financial educator and I want to empower you to be more in control of your money and build the financial future that you want. I run the Greenhouse Money Growing Program, and you can find details of that in the podcast show notes. My name is Jessica Brady. It's time to get financially fierce. Okay, in a quest to keep these episodes short, which I'm doing a damn bad job of, if I was going to give myself a performance rating, I would say it's a needs improvement on that one. But I'm going to try to jump straight in to my first of the 3 conversation starters for this month to improve your financial life. I think what a lot of people need and are very scared to have is the "are we on the same page" chat with your partner. Don't run away. And also don't run away if you are single. Don't worry, I've got thoughts for you on this as well. I did a couple of pieces, I did some research a couple of years ago, and the results were pretty alarming when it comes to this category. Firstly, something like 4 in 5 people said that money was a huge issue in a relationship, to the point where a lot of breakups were cited for financial conflict. And then further to that, from my research that I did, 1 in 3 couples said that they were fighting about money at least monthly. That doesn't feel particularly nice to me. So rather than only having hostile, conflict-full conversations about money, I think we need to bring in a practice of proactivity, and rather than criticism or critique of how money's being spent, actually having some really good, proactive, important conversations with your other half, if you have one, around what we want to do. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on that. But first, let's also just sort of ask ourselves this question internally before we get to with a partner, because I think if we ask ourselves, are we on the same page? Naturally, we're talking to another person. But I also think that this is a good question to ask our inner self. Are we on the same page? If I want to do this thing, am I actually spending or behaving in a way that reflects what I am asking of my goals? We love to think that, especially if you're in a partnership, all of the reasons why something isn't happening is none of your fault and absolutely because of the other person. But I think for a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this as well, there can be times where we really want an outcome, but we aren't necessarily doing the things that enable that outcome to come to fruition. So before we even get to talking about anyone else, let's do a bit of a housekeeping check internally. Am I actually doing the things that I want to do, or need to do probably? It's probably much more need to do to achieve my goal. Am I on the same page in terms of my mindset, beliefs, goals, behaviors, habits, thought patterns? You might have a big confronting moment there when it comes to just internally that conflict, which can persist if you do not tackle it. And then let's assume that you are in a partnership. Maybe you're not in one right now, so maybe this is just information for when and if you decide to couple up in the future, or maybe you are in a partnership already. Now, obviously, it depends how you have split everything, especially because I see a lot of conflict that arises not only around value alignment, but it's actually around value alignment when it comes to spending or not, saving or not, or having goals that are aligned. That is a huge point of contention. But some people decide to pool everything, to split everything, to have everything, individual. I think sometimes it's quite easy to assume that there is alignment. Like you just assume that person values the same thing as me, that person thinks in the same way as me, we are wanting the same thing, until something happens and you realize, ooh, maybe we aren't as aligned as we thought. Maybe we don't actually value all of the same things. Maybe we actually do want to do slightly different variations on our goals. And that can be quite a confronting moment. And it can be quite an emotionally triggering moment. And so let's give you some ways to have rational, collectively cohesive conversations with each other about money. So I think some things to ask your partner and or yourself. What is most important to you financially this year? And I think, again, coming back to what I said in the beginning, asking yourself this first, like we love to critique other people. We love to give advice to other people. I mean, don't we? I'm so good at giving advice to other people. And then sometimes I need to go, let's get you a mirror. Are you actually doing this yourself? So asking yourself, like, what's the most important thing for me financially this year can be a hard thing to sit with to try to figure out the answer. But I think very, very insightful to try to understand where is your other partner at, your partner, or depending on how many partners you have, where is that partner at? What is a priority for them? Because what you think might be their focus may actually not be what they say their focus is, which is an interesting exploration in itself. Asking questions around, like, are we saving or having a strategy around the same goals? Like, are we on the same bus here? Because a lot of what I would see when I was giving one-on-one advice was someone normally would take over the majority of the financial admin and decision-making day to day. And normally what you would see is that one person was really connected to the plan and then the other person was not as involved, not as engaged, not as on board, whether they said it or not, it's a different story, with the financial goals. And so they were just kind of actively doing their own thing. And what it looked like to the other partner was sabotage. And so what you can find, especially if you have one person who's a bit more interested and a bit more on top of it, they will assume in a lot of instances, yeah, we're aligned, we're definitely like wanting the same goal. And then when you talk to the other party, it's like, I don't really know if that's what we want. Like, I'm not really sure. You can imagine this is when the other party's like, what do you mean? Like, we've talked about, we've agreed on it. How do you not know that this is what we're focusing on? And so, that can be, again, quite conflictful. And what I say to people is you've got to try to find a way where no one necessarily wins at the odds of the other person, because what happens is that person is going to become actively more and more disengaged. They're going to start resenting you, particularly if it means that they have to give up things that are important to them, or you're constantly critiquing spending, which is a big one. We have to find goals that light both parties up. And thus we need to build a plan, be it savings, investing, debt reduction, whatever that might look like, that they both feel really aligned to. You both feel really aligned to. So asking yourself and your other partner or your partner, I'm really not getting the other partner language right, am I? Is, are we saving for the same goal? Do we actually even have a goal? Is probably an important conversation to have this month anyway. And how do we want to handle money differently? And you can ask this in lots of different ways. You can be like, how do we want to handle money differently from how we have been over the last quarter, over the last 12 months? You can get quite big on this and be like, historically, how do we want to handle money differently to say how we learned about money or what we watched our parents do with money? So you can kind of take this conversation wherever you think it needs to go, especially if you've had a really big spendy quarter or a big 12 months of financial headwinds or challenges. Maybe it is asking a particular timestamp, but also the bigger, broader question of, categorically and fundamentally, how do we want to be different to what we were role modeled, is a big but really important question. Because if you don't ask those proactively, it is very unlikely that A, you will gain the insights from yourselves and each other, but B, you will actually do proactive work to kind of make that circuit breaker, to put that line in the sand and be like, not anymore. I'm unlearning some of the things that did not serve or I watched harm my family, and I don't want to do that anymore. What I tend to find over and over again from the people that I work with is that if they don't consciously and actively observe and decide to make shifts, everything becomes very reactive and there's no look back or real critique of how the role modeling in someone's life has played out to date and continues to play out to date in your family dynamic when it comes to money. So let me just do a bit of recap because I did go on a slight tangent, so sorry. What's the most important thing for you financially this year? Are we saving for the same goals? Do we want to handle money differently to how we have over the last X or than, say, our parents or caregivers did? And clearly there are cascading questions to then ask yourselves, what does that look like? How would that work? How are we going to make this a reality? What's the first tiny milestone that we can bring in so that we're not trying to create so much change that we fall over in the first hurdle? I think these don't need to be really long conversations. You might pick one up, every week and just actually sit with yourself and your partner for 20 minutes and go, cool, let's actually just drill into this and create a bit of a game plan or get a bit more of an understanding so that we can reduce tension, so that we can actually feel excited and aligned with our goals, so that we can kind of share the mental load, so that we can have some points to celebrate. What I really want for most people, or what I know is that most people are not currently having proactive, healthy conversations in their home about money. And money is the enabler, or really the handbrake, of so many of the things that you and your partner and or your family normally want. And so if we're not having money conversations, or when we are having money conversations, they're really conflict-full, then don't we need to acknowledge that that probably isn't going to lead to the outcomes that we're looking for? And it can feel weird and it can feel ick. But once you start doing it regularly, you realize these are actually some of the most important conversations we will ever have. And they are worth our time. They are worth creating capacity for. And sometimes you realize we are really not aligned here. And then you have really hard questions to ask yourself around, can we find a balance? Is there a middle ground? Or am I in a relationship with someone who wants a really different life to the life that I'm wanting? And if so, what am I going to do about it? I'm not here to help you have conversations where you end up consciously uncoupling, but I also don't want you to live a life where your values and your goals are never fulfilled. I honestly don't want you to have that. So over the next 30 days, conversation number 1 is, are we on the same page? After the break, I'm going to do 2 other conversations that you can do over the next 30 days to improve your overall money world.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. If you would like help based on your own personal situation, head over to moneypodcast.com.au, click Get Help, and we'd be happy to introduce you to one of our trusted professionals. Our panel of vetted financial advisors and mortgage brokers work with people all over Australia so they can connect with you wherever you are. That's moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help.
Before we get to number 2, what I should have said as we rounded out number 1 is, why don't you figure out when it is the best time for you to have these conversations? Again, whether it be just with you and or with someone else, and put them in the diary. Put them in the diary. I think money dates are actually quite romantic. I know, you can fight me on that later. But is it that every Saturday morning for the next couple of weeks, we're going to go and have a coffee and sit and do some stuff together? Or on a Sunday arvo, when the washing is being dried, we're going to sit, or, we can get the kids to be looked after by, my parents for an hour every, Wednesday night. Find a time, put it in your diary. Do not wait to feel ready or to have the time or to be motivated. You are not going to find that time. You are not going to wake up and feel suddenly motivated to have deep, personal, important conversations around money out of the blue. And it's also an affront to the other person. Hi, sit down. We need to talk about money. Where has this come from? This feels scary. I didn't know this was coming. Don't do that to them either. You're not going to psychologically make them feel safe to have vulnerable, good, quality conversations. Prepare it. Put it in or get them to put it in your diary, whatever. Just my whole point here is it's lovely to think about this. And if I really want you to have this change over the next 30 days, you're going to actually need to take micro steps to put that in place. And when that calendar reminder comes up, that's like 15 minutes until you're having a money date, don't be like, oh, I can't be asked. That's like, okay, I know we don't feel like it. I know that there's washing to be done or the, sink needs cleaning or whatever. Can we just take 20 minutes and just go through this? You will, if you do it and you do it well, consistently, it doesn't always work well in the first go, like everything, you will see normally considerable shifts and improvements in your relationship, in the dynamic, in the quality of conversations that you have about money, your alignment, and you will feel excited and be able to celebrate with each other when you are doing things that pay off. There are so many benefits to being able to do it. Just start and see how you go. Okay, the next conversation, number 2, that I'd love for you to have in the next 30 days is like the let's talk numbers chat. Yeah. This is specifically around your income. So I'm going to assume that you're an employed person. If you are not, you can obviously think about what this means from a business owner perspective. If you're on a contract, obviously you need to consider, where you're at and what your employed situation is. But we often spend so much time talking about cash flow and how to make sure that, your income is going to the correct places for now, but also for later you. But often we forget the top of the funnel because when it comes to cash flow, we've only got 2 levers. How much money is going into the pot and how much is leaking out of the pot. And so rather than only focusing on where it is leaking out to, which is important, we also could think about, well, how do we put more in the top of that funnel? How do we put more in the bucket so that there is more to go to different places? So, obviously I want you to think about not only your pay, but the benefits and potential things that have some sort of overall benefit, be it, income or otherwise. They are important conversations. And they can also give you other things like flexibility, et cetera, et cetera. It's not always just about salary, but I think having considered conversations about this is very important. Now, what I will say, having spent over a decade in some very well-known names, some of the biggest names in financial services, I am acutely aware that certainly in the organizations that I worked for, we had like a yearly calendar, if you will, like a cadence of when you had performance reviews, when your bonuses were, if you ever had a bonus, when they were announced, when they were delivered, when promotions were announced. It was very rare to have an out of cycle situation. And so if that is similar in your world, then clearly I'm obviously talking about the next 30 days, but just be really mindful of where you are at in this cycle. And what I would also say, and I know I've spoken about this on other episodes, is do a lot of heavy lifting well before that time comes up so that when promotion conversations, pay rise conversations, bonus conversations, when they are happening, you have already spent quite a lot of time really strategically planting the seed of why you deserve the next pay rise, the next, promotion, the next, insert thing here. And you're not just leaving it to one moment in time and really hoping that you are pitching well enough or that your boss will just recognize that you've done a great job and financially reward you for it. That is something that you actively need to almost project manage over a period of time. So even if this is not the 30 days where those conversations are to be had, you can still have some conversation in the next 30 days to start seeding what you would like to happen in the future. Obviously, for you to know what you'd like to happen in the future, you need to current day you do some research on that as well. So a couple of things to think about as you are getting ready to decide where you are at in that cycle, but what you would like to focus on. One of the ones that I'd like for you to do first as you're reviewing your numbers is look at your payslip. I used to find that many clients of mine would give me their payslip and they'd be like, I don't know how to read this. Do you think this is right? And honestly, I understand why some of them would say that to me because I would look at their payslip and be like, why on earth do they make them so confusing? So confusing. We also found some where people were not getting some of the things that they were meant to be getting. So it's always just good to just A, check your payslip, B, make sure you fully understand it. And if you don't, get someone like your boss or someone in HR, whoever is appropriate, to walk you through your payslip. Because again, we want to have clarity and understanding, and it is your pay. You are trading your time for money. It is perfectly reasonable to be like, hey, can you just walk me through what these numbers are and how they work. Because remember, we are becoming financially engaged and we want to be bold and fierce about having conversations where we don't understand something particularly to do with numbers. And you might find that a 5-minute explainer now makes everything make more sense in the future. Great. That's what we want. That is what we want. So coming back to more conversations that are around your development, your career opportunities, your income opportunities, etc. I think it's also important as we talk about pay rises to think about what else is worth considering here, especially as more and more people are starting to be really considered around what the changes in technology/AI might mean for their job and their career prospects and the future of their industry. I think more and more people now are having doubts about whether they're in a role that will exist in the future. I mean, I'm not here saying that like robots are coming for you, but they might be. And so have a think about the longevity of your career, and is AI coming to potentially take away opportunities for you in your sector? And like, of course, this is always, in my experience, pitched as like complimentary and it will help you improve your role and we don't want to take away real jobs. And, you know, they always package it as this thing like, don't be alarmed, everything's fine. And is it? Like, sure, we're all still alive and, well, presumably because you're listening to this, but like, I don't think we can say that with a lot of conviction anymore. I don't think anyone could take a lot of confidence from a leader who's like, don't worry, this is not going to impact jobs. It's only going to make your job better. When in the back of your mind, you're like, no, this really could in the next 10 or 20 years have a pretty considerable impact on me. So I think that is worth thinking through. And like, a leader's not going to say in an open town hall, yeah, you should be worried. This is probably going to take half your jobs. No one's going to say that in a leadership position, probably. So like, just give that some thought as well. There's Kool-Aid that might be, you know, being passed around. You have to decide whether you want to drink that or not. So figuring out what is available in your current role and what opportunities you could latch onto is important. So think about like, does your team, does your business have professional development budgets? Do they have leadership programs that you could go on? You know, what could they offer you that may not necessarily be a pay rise, but other benefits that will in the long run provide you with more career stability, more promotional opportunity, basically improve your overall career prospects, your income opportunities for the long term. So we want to figure out, what does that look like? How do you get on any of those programs? How can you be given potentially funds to go and study or do additional education or do adjacent sort of training? And I always like to look at the fine print, because sometimes they will be like, yeah, we'll pay for that for you. But then in the fine print, it's like, you are stuck here for a certain amount of years. So just make sure you understand what you are getting and whether that is beneficial for you. But also, a lot of organizations do now have employee benefits, and a lot of people don't actually know what they are. So like, if your employee is offering you a whole heap of benefits, look into them. Are they beneficial? Ask the question, hey, do we have any employee benefits? Where can I find more information about that? What's changed? Can I salary sacrifice stuff? Like, get information. Ask the question. You might find that you can salary sacrifice things, or that you've got access to different employee benefits that might save you money. It's worth doing some digging on. But the big one, clearly, for most people, is exploring, how can we get you paid more? How do we get you a pay rise beyond inflation for most people? Because remember, inflation is just keeping up with the pace of changing costs for goods. So if we're just getting inflationary earmarked increases, you're not actually getting any additional capacity to be able to do anything sexy. It's just meaning that you have hopefully now still enough to be able to pay or buy the same amount of stuff as you could before. Sure, that is great, but frankly, what I'm hoping, depending on where you're at in your career, is that there is additional income opportunity beyond that, so that you've got more fuel in your fire to be able to deploy to your financial goals. So this could be a pay rise over and above inflation, more often than not, particularly for people who are still on that sort of upward career trajectory. We're talking about promotions or the ability for you to step into something that sees you with more money, be it base salary or more opportunity to bring in bonuses, commissions, etc. So I think most people are very reactive with their career development more broadly, and their pay rises aren't something they really spend any level of time thinking about. And I have been guilty of this. So like I say this as someone who has made this mistake, because my honest take was, if I do a good job and if I have clear KPIs and I meet them and I do a good job, you'll just reward me financially. And I learned, sadly, the hard way that actually a lot of people in my team were not doing it like that. They were being really, really strategic, and they were pitching and creating almost like bloody promo decks of themselves. And I wasn't. And lo and behold, they were getting a lot more promotions, pay rises, additional opportunities. And my boss, I've talked about this before, but I'll say it again in case you haven't heard this. My boss at the time pulled me aside and was like, why haven't you booked a meeting with me for, pay rise chats? And I was like, because we have one booked in a couple of weeks. What are you talking about? And she was like, no, but like everyone else in the team has booked in like a pre-pay rise chat, because in the pay rise chat that we have booked in, I am telling you what your new pay is. I was like, yeah, that's what it's there for, right? She's like, no, Jess, everyone else is booking in a chat to tell me why they deserve more, why they should get the lion's share of the profit, why they should get a promotion. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, that's what everyone does. I was like, is this normal? She's like, yeah. I was like, wow, I've worked at this bank for a long time and I've never known this. And I just assumed, because we were all on the same KPIs, that it would just be, I don't know, fair based on how our performance went. If I was doing well, I assumed that would mean that I would get all the things. And anyway, I ended up feeling really silly and frustrated, because I was like, wow, I didn't know this was a thing. I felt ick about needing to do the thing, because I was like, well, why do I need to pitch to you? Like, you see how I'm doing. You tell me I'm doing a great job. Like, why do I need to do that? And she was like, because this is the game. And I was like, shit, this is a game. I need to really reframe this in my brain. I'm not saying that that's how every organization works, but I think it's actually probably a lot more than you realize. And you might find that people in your team are doing this and you are not. And it's leaving money on the table, or it's at least not putting your hat in the ring. Let's put your hat firmly in the ring, my friend. I would like for you to get that extra money. I would like for you to have more capacity to be able to do the things that are important to you. So what is the next stage of your career? What is it that you want to do next? You might have just moved into a role. So you might be like, oh, I'm just barely coping with the role that I have. Okay, fine. But for a lot of people, we are waiting to feel ready for that next role. There's also some brilliant / hideous research that says that, like, sweeping generalization incoming, men will put their hand up for a role when they meet like enough. I think it's like half of the requirements of a role. Women will wait to feel like they meet every single requirement of the role before they put their hat in the ring. We can't be doing that. Just throw that out the window. And I think it is hard, because it's like, to have this role, you will have all of these things, experience in this, 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 and this. And I love that men are just like, yeah, I don't have that, and that. Yeah, that's fine. I can go for it anyway. Sure, I can give it a crack. Whereas I look at that and think, oh, well, fuck that. I don't have what they're looking for. Oh, well, I'll keep looking. We need to be bolder, because if people are putting their hat, and this is not a critique of men, it's actually like, well, I think it's fascinating that they do it, but also like, why aren't we? If we know that data, it's not new data, it's been around for a while. If we know that, why are we still hung up about not feeling ready for the next role? Why do we still feel inexperienced and therefore not able to ask for the rise or raise that we know we are probably in the open market worth? Like, let's just be less... I think it's actually like uncoupling ourselves from our job for a moment, because I think that there is so much fear that we are going to be shot down, or I don't know, we just put so much pressure on ourselves to be able to get this raise. And I just want to point out that often women don't get raises, not because they don't ask for them, but because they're told no. And so like when women are asking for raises, a lot of the time they're actually being told no. So I don't think we should necessarily confuse this and say women are not necessarily always putting their hand in the ring for the next job, or they're never asking for pay rises. They do. A lot of the time they don't apparently get as much a raise. But again, we cannot let that deter us, because we just need to be really factual about it. I think making sure in my experience, having learned that you need to pitch and start seeding. So again, this is why you can start figuring out what is the conversation that I could have regarding my career development, income opportunities, et cetera, within the next 30 days. But think about this as a long-term plan. And my other advice, and I've done, I think, a whole episode on this, so I won't dwell on it too much, is asking for a pay rise is a business and commercial decision. As much as it is very hard as a human being to leave your emotions at the door, that is absolutely what must happen. You need to make sure that when you are pitching for a pay rise, you know why you are pitching for what you're pitching for. You understand how much value you are bringing to the company and commercially what benefit that gives the organization, be it uptick of profitability or revenue or client retention or decreasing costs. Like, you need to make a case that is commercially minded so that the business understands, wow, this person has not only done a really great job on the performance, of their role, they're actually doing things that are saving us money, saving us time, reducing error, whatever it might be. And that cost impact is X, Y, and Z. Therefore, if you are only asking for a meager increase of this much, but you are bringing so much more commercial value to the business, I think it makes it much easier to be able to justify that and what you would be worth on, what you would be able to access income-wise on the open market. It makes it a much stronger conversation. Sometimes people are very emotionally weighted around why they need that income. Oh, my mortgage has just gone up, or my child's now starting school, or like the business is not, it's not the right approach. So I've seen this with a lot of people, like really think about how to have those conversations that are business minded, that are going to, give that person a lot of information around why that number is the right number for you to be paid moving forward, and show them examples of where you have exceeded expectations. It feels so ick, especially in Australia where we hate trying hard, in inverted commas, which we hate tryhards. Isn't that so stupid? And yet here we are every day just trying our hardest to survive. Why do we hate them? We hate doing it ourselves, and yet we are trying. It's okay to want to try. It's okay to, work really hard on something and then expect to then ask for it to be acknowledged and recognized. That is okay. We need to stop with our tall poppy bullshit, and it starts internally. So you don't ask what you don't get. You don't get what you don't ask for. I think that's probably the better way to say it. This could be a way for you to boost your income, advance your career, think about the next steps more broadly, but also boost your confidence. Asking for a pay rise is the most terrifying thing, in a lot of instances when you do it the first time. And practice, I would say, with other people. Especially if you know that this is something where you might feel really uncomfortable, and a lot of people feel really uncomfortable about it because it's money. Practice with someone, get feedback, or for God's sake, if you don't want to do that, film yourself, which sounds horrific, but listen to yourself back and be like, oh, okay. Don't test in that moment. If you know you only get 1 or 2 chats about this a year, you got too much to lose by fucking it up, by not practicing. So find a buddy and get some honest, good feedback so that when you do go in for those conversations, you feel really prepared, and you feel really prepared for the fact that they might say no. They might say, I think about it. They might say not yet, and how you're going to respond in all of those instances is something that I think you should practice as well. And the third, final conversation that I think is worth having in the next 30 days is the where the hell am I at right now convo. This is either one that you have just with yourself. Even if you're part of a team, I think having it by yourself is important. Or you go and find a trusted person. And it depends on your situation, but, for many people, it's that they need external perspective. So it's someone completely outside of their world. So it's it's either an accountability buddy that will give you the hard truths, and that's lovely. You don't want your bestie who's just going to be able to be justifying everything with you, for you, and making you feel good about it. Lovely of them, but also frustrating because no, we need the person who's going to be okay, no, we need an honest hot take here. We need a sensitive but strong person to challenge you, to hold space with you, to hype you, find that person. Otherwise, go and find an expert who can do it with you. Yeah, be it a financial advisor if you need one-on-one advice, be it a coach if you need someone like that, or a money expert, whoever you need, to make sure that if you are going to have conversations internally, you are therefore going to take the action that's needed to move yourself forward. Some people can do this. They can have those conversations internally and just weirdly, naturally then go and do the thing. I know, it's very strange. There are like these self-starter people who just say they're going to do something and then they just go and do it. Wild. If you are more like me who needs hand-holding, then kidding yourself and pretending to yourself that you are going to just be able to self-start and self-stay is probably going to be a recipe for disaster. For example, I have a project that's due in 2 weeks, quite a big project that's scaring the shit out of me. And so, because I've been sick, I've had the flu, right? It's been a year. I've had the flu and now I'm behind on my project because I was literally like in bed for 9 days, I think. So, I am so much of someone who needs support and accountability that I rang my auntie on the way to the podcast studio today and I said to her, "Hi, can I come over tomorrow and work from your house so that I get this thing done?" And she said, do you know what she said? Because she knows me so well. "Yes, and I will take the phone off you and I will take the dog so that you have no distractions." And I was like, I could not love you more if I tried. I actually couldn't love you more if I tried. I need to be babysat from myself. Am I ashamed of saying this? I probably should be, but like I'm really not. I'm really not. I have learnt radical acceptance, but also recognition of how I work best. And then rather than berating myself for how I naturally work, it's about recognizing that I'm actually so much better when I put things in place that make it really hard for me to muck it up. And so if I know that I'm at my auntie's house to get something done, if I know that she's going to be like keeping an eye on me, that I'm not going to be able to get distracted, that I am, not going to be able to go and, do something else, it is okay for me to say that and not feel terrible about it because I'm like, actually, I'm making a really smart decision that's going to lead to the outcome that I want. You might laugh at it and be like, I don't need to be babysat. Good on you. I admire you. One day when I'm an adult, I may not need to be babysat either. But for the rest of us who are just over here trying to figure out how to do things, it is okay to put mechanisms in place to support you rather than just beating yourself up and saying nasty things to yourself. Just ask yourself, what leads to the best outcomes for me and where I'm at right now? What do I need to put in place? I have a goals coach personally because I know that without that level of structured accountability, I don't get where I want to go fast enough and I get frustrated. I've had a financial advisor for years. I figured out that is what really works for me and I want to hack my outcomes. And I think you do too because you're here. So asking where you are at right now internally, great step. And I'm going to tell you some questions to ask yourself. But then I want you to find the way that you think is going to sustainably create that change moving forward. So I want you to know, you're not alone. You're never alone. There are always people out there to support you. Even if you feel alone today, tomorrow doesn't have to be alone. You just need to go and find those people. So where are you at right now with your money? Okay, many people avoid this. Many people would rather poke themselves in the eye with a fork than getting across this. But we know that knowledge is power. So we want this. Let's figure out, what is my current net wealth position? Do I know what my current net wealth position is? It's a good question to ask yourself. And what is it? In preparation for this podcast, I last week actually went and did a whole review of my net wealth position. I went and looked at all of my investments, all of my super, and did an aggregated net wealth overview, which was a really great thing to do. I like to do it periodically. It hadn't been a little while, especially because my health events since I'd done it. Do it. Go and do your net wealth position and figure out what that looks like right now. Then I would love for you to ask yourself, where is my money going every month? Again, confronting, but very insightful. Don't run away from these. The more that you feel you want to run away, the more that you need to sit with the discomfort of doing this work, in my experience. And again, I feel very proud because I did this last week as part of my overall wealth position review ahead of this podcast. Because, it's one thing to tell y'all to do it, but then the question is like, when was the last time I did some of this stuff? And never wanting to be the plumber with the tap that leaks, I was like, yeah, if I'm going to do an ep on this, I need to bloody go and do some making sure that my own house is in order. So my question is your super invested in a way that matches your goals? I actually realized that for me, broadly, yes. I am going to make two changes to my super next week. I've earmarked some time to do that. But it was a really great little moment for me to be like, awesome. And I rang the super funds. Can I just say, I have 3 super funds. I just want to announce that because I'm uninsurable. And so I've got like breadcrumbs of super strategically to make sure that my insurances that are already there stay there. And I was very clear with the people on the phone. I have allocated, that I don't want this super cancelled, right? I just want to say thank you to those super funds that I spoke to. I had the most beautiful conversations with the people on the super fund. I don't know, I wasn't on hold for long. They were really helpful. They confirmed a whole heap of stuff for me. They gave me a whole heap of information. One of them, I couldn't find my login. And so we resorted that. I don't know. It was just a much less shite experience than I was expecting. And so in case, like me, you avoid doing things because you feel like it's going to be hard and heavy and you're going to wait on hold and hear that shit music and they won't be able to help you and you've just doomsday that the whole thing will be terrible. I feel you. I've done that once or twice. I want you to know that my experience last week in prep for this episode was actually great. They were really helpful. They were really lovely. And I got all the information. I felt so much clearer about not only where I was at, but because I timestamped my net wealth position, I was looking at, okay, what's changed? What's it changed by? Am I happy with where I'm at versus where I was? Which has led for one of the portfolios, I'm going to change 2 things on them, which is how I got to that decision. But I think asking yourself, is my super invested in a way that matches my goals, or are my investments more broadly invested in a way that match my goals, I think is the other kind of really important question. And clearly, depending on where you are at, there might be other questions that are really important, like questions around my savings levels, questions around reduction of bad debt. If you've got some, questions around what my next thing to learn with money is. You need to then figure out what is the level that you're at right now. Where is the level? What level are you on? You know what I'm trying to say. Where are you at? What needs remediation? Because sometimes we need to do work to kind of fix the back of house stuff. Sometimes it can look, particularly with money, everything is shiny and beautiful. But then you get behind the curtain and you're like, whoa, this is not shiny and beautiful anymore. So we might need to do some figuring out of that. But then what is coming up for me? We can't just keep doing review stuff all the time. At some point, we've got to look forward and be like, what is next? What is the next thing I want to learn about money? What is the next thing I want to do with my money? What is the next level that I can take, myself to? Because we often are the people who limit ourselves. We put the brakes on more often than anyone else. So I would always be looking at where is there a bit of a hangover from an admin perspective that I can get on top of. And having just done it over the last week, I feel clearly quite boastful about doing it, as you may or may not be able to tell. It feels good, especially if you've been putting it off for a little while. I want you to know that the other side feels so much nicer. It is worth that half an hour. You will feel so adulty if I'm anything to go by. But then it's about what is next. Where can I be taking on the next challenge, the next learning opportunity, the next growth curve? Don't run away from that. That provides so much opportunity for you to improve your financial world. So I really hope, to round out today's conversation, I really hope you do all 3 of these in the next 30 days. I don't think that is a hard, unattainable goal for you. I really don't. Are we on the same page, chat? Either with the spendy person of you and yourself or with your partner and yourself. The numbers chat with your employer to understand what life could look like in a career sense or an income sense moving forward, and how to plan for that and what you need to do to get a pay rise, what you need to achieve, what can be documented, all those things. And then the where am I actually at inside my own world either alone or with a trusted person chat. So when are you going to do them? How are you going to do them? Who needs to be there to help you and support you to actually getting the actions in the diary or the outcomes done? Life is just all about boring microtasking, in my opinion. Not all of life, but like a lot of admin, a lot of financial admin is. I would love for you to have these conversations, and I want you to look for little moments of aha, shit, I've realized I need more structure. I've realized I need more support here, or I need more delineation between how my spending accounts are set up, or whatever it might be. Look for aha moments and get a guide. Get someone who is going to support you through this learning journey. Don't do it alone. Money is so lonesome, and it doesn't have to be. Get someone to babysit you, like I am with my auntie tomorrow, if you need it. Get an accountability buddy. Figure out how to do that. Obviously, I am here to support you if and when you want it. You can either book in a one-on-one clarity call with me if you feel like, oh no, there's a particular issue I need to go dive deep into. I'll put a link in the show notes. You can book a 1-hour general clarity call, chat with me, or you can come and do one of my programs. I do monthly Get Shit Done sessions where we literally get together and get life admin, financial admin done as part of the Evergreen Money Club for exactly that reason. It's every month, so you know, okay, at least I know every single month there is going to be time in my diary where I get to show up with other people and do my financial admin together. Or obviously my 10-week program, which is the Greenhouse, which starts in September. That'll be our last intake for 2025. So if you do want to build your strategy more broadly, that is definitely the place to do it. Good luck. Let me know how you go with your 3 chats, Jess Brady _financial advice, or of course you can put it in the MMM Facebook community. I would love to hear whether you do all 3, how you go, what the outcomes are going to be, and how you feel on the other side. Okay, you know what to do. Go now. Go and be financially fierce. Bye.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia. We pay our respects to elders past and present. Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Jessica Brady is an Authorised Representative of Paragem Pty Ltd, Authorised Representative Number 1259972, AFSL 297276, ABN 16108571875, Corporate Authorised Representative Number 1305567.